politics, science, and humanities. These are the ingredients needed to create the perfect podcast storm. But the DJ on the mic added an ingredient to make it even better: liberty from censorship. Live from the heart of Luzon and representing the Philippines, you are listening to the Voice of the Nations return to the airwaves. Welcome to The Point of Discourse, where we discuss anything and everything about the world and what's happening in it. Broadcasting in the service of people worldwide. This is your host, DJ Tacta. DJ Tacta. DJ Tacta. On the POD, we host 1 hour of podcast discussions every Saturday with guests from around the country and around the world, sitting in every second and fourth Saturday of the month, while your host does solo sessions every first and third Saturdays. We're not afraid to be controversial on the show, and anyone and everyone is welcome to sit down and have a talk to let the library of insights grow ever larger. So sit back, grab a snack, and enjoy the freest podcast on this side of the Pacific, exclusively on the POD website. Catch you on the flip side of the airwaves.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, people of the world. I'm your host, Mo, and joining me today are 3 very special guests of mine. Why don't you introduce yourselves first, guys?
Hello there, I'm Christine and I'm 20 years old. I'm from Batangas City and I'm an arts and design student.
Hello, I'm Yani and I'm from Manila. And like Christine, I'm also an arts and design student.
I'm Miguel. I'm from Cagayan, and I'm also an arts and design student.
All right, so today we'll be talking about growing up and what it was like for us to, now that we're all about to finish our chapters as teenagers. Miguel's the only exception here since the dude's like 22, but he still has a lot of insights to give to us. So without further ado, let's start with peer pressure. So here's what I've got to say about peer pressure. You can try fitting in, but realize you can't please everyone. Protect your own identity. So what I mean by this is that basically you can try to like fit in with people, you know? Like in any environment, you're really going to be expected to like try to be normal, so they say. And by being normal, you do what other people do. And usually this might mean vices such as smoking, drinking, that sort of stuff, or any other sort of contraband. But what you have to realize is that you can't please everyone. You have to be true to yourself as well. Since if you let that happen, like if you just follow them, you're just putting yourself in a path of destruction for yourself. Eventually, you'll lose yourself. You got to stay true to yourself if you want to make it, you know? So let's see here. Miguel, what do you got to say for yourself here?
Para sa akin, you gotta make a line for yourself, right? You can't note that line that you make for yourself. Hanggang doon ka lang, di ba? Like, baka yun yung drugs, that's the line. Yung parang, I'm a back out. Hindi ko na kaya to, hindi na pwede ako dito. You gotta make a line to make sure na parang hanggang doon ka lang. Pero yung peer pressure na, tara, inom tayo, sige, edi, inom kayo. Pero yung maglalabas na ng drugs, so, mag-back out ka na. Learn when to back out. Kasi, if they're really your friends, they'll learn to stop peer pressuring you to doing something. So yun.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Sounds great. So that said, though, you do realize that there's a difference between enjoying your youth to live the best life that you can versus living your youth to ruin your future, right? So let's ask Annie what she has to say about that.
Yeah.
I do agree with Migs na kailangan meron kang magsaset ka ng boundaries for yourself. Like, you should know when to say no. Kasi there are a lot more ways naman you can enjoy your youth eh. Why not invest in something that you can have fun in, but at the same time, diba, it helps you improve yourself. You could also reach betterment And kunwari, pwede kang mag-invest sa good quality education. You can learn instruments, how to speak different languages. Nag-enjoy ka rin naman nun. But in that way, it's good for you, 'di ba? Unlike when you just drink, when you just party, go to the clubs, you do other vices. In the long run, it's gonna backlash sa'yo. Kaya it's better na you live your entire life as the best life kaysa dun lang sa youth mo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's true. Let's see. What does Christine have to say about this?
I also agree with Yanni. Like, sabi nga nila, di ba, YOLO, you only live once. But hindi naman ibig sabihin ng YOLO na pwede mong gawin lahat without limitations or without expecting the odds. So like, enjoy every moment of your life, but with precautions. Yeah.
Well, considering that living your life inevitably leads to like situations where something you don't want happens, accidents, stuff like that. It's really interesting that we got to dive deep into like what happens in accidents and how we interpret that. So my take on it is basically that accidents happen to all of us, though obviously the most cautious get away with the least bruises. But then again, what's life without a bit of danger and thrill? For me, I do think that, accidents will happen. We're not perfect. It'll happen to anyone, all right? And though that might happen, we still do our best to be careful. That's why our parents always tell us to be careful. It's so that we don't hurt ourselves. And we will get hurt, but, as long as we know how to get back up, how to treat ourselves, it'll be fine. And
True.
like I was saying, like, what what's life without a bit of thrill and danger? Of course, you got to know your limits, like to avoid any sort of accident. You don't drink above your limit and then try to drive home. That's stupid. What you do instead is you drink a bit, and if someone at the party is sober, say a friend of yours that you trust, you ask them to drive you home. You can have a bit of fun. You can indulge in a bit of vices. You can live a bit, but the thing is, you don't go over the edge. All right. So have fun, but be careful. That's all I got for that. How about you, Migs?
True, yeah, totoo naman yun. Pero like, no matter how safe you are, accidents always happen. It's just inevitable. It will always happen. And when it happens, we honestly have no say in this matter. We're not in control when we get a vibe check from God. No, suntokin tayo ng mundo, we're down. Like, we can't. Wala tayo dun. It just happens to us. And all we can really do is look on the bright side. Because pag tumingin ka on the other side and you keep looking at what you've lost, you'll just drown yourself in that resentment state. And no one wants to see that. So sometimes, kailangan mo, you need to take the L and walk away. Sometimes ganun talaga, life is like that.
Yeah, that is true.
True.
Well, they do say that there's also happy accidents, like something that you didn't really intend to happen, but you end up finding it. And it ends up happening. And for a lot of
Mhm.
people, a happy accident is basically how they found their passion. So let's talk about that. Finding your passion. For me, there's a difference in being skilled and enjoying something. Find that balance, and you'll find your passion. For me, see, you don't know exactly what your passion is until you try and try just about anything you can think of that interests you. For me, it was public speaking and broadcasting. At first, I was a really shy child. I didn't really, talk much. But as time passed by, I decided to give it a shot, and here I am hosting a podcast right now. It's my passion. You got to
That's right.
find that. You got to find that. That Goldilocks zone, that sweet spot that allows you to enjoy something while at the same time being skilled at it. I think that's a good passion to have. Something that you can actually use to fulfill yourself, not just because you enjoy it, but because it actually gives you meaning. So that said, I wonder what Annie has to say about this.
I actually do agree with that. Like when you put yourself like in something that you want to pursue for a long time, it you have to make sure that it's something you have fun with, but at the same time, you like doing it. Like it doesn't drain you. It shouldn't be draining you. And it's going to be hard to follow your passion if you do not have purpose. Like you have to know what do you want to happen? Like, where do you want to go? Hindi lang yung, enjoy ko to. Pero saan ka pupunta? Saan mo gusto mag-end up in, di ba? Mahirap yun pag puro enjoy ka lang tapos hindi mo alam saan ka mag-end, saan yung path mo. Kaya it's better to know what way you want to go, what methods you want to follow when it comes to finding your passion, living it.
Yeah, that is true. And in that path to finding your passion, um, we do have to ask ourselves some very rough questions. Are we good enough for what we want to do? Do people like us for what we do? These sorts of things. Anyone can ask these questions to themselves. And usually, what happens is a negative feedback loop. It's what we call insecurities. And I can honestly say all of us have experiences with insecurities. But I wonder what the girls have to say about this. Let's go back to Yanni.
For me, like, everyone, for sure, everyone has insecurities. It's normal, but we have to know how to deal with it. And acceptance is the key talaga when you want to deal with your insecurities. Like, you should also remember that insecure people pick on others as flaws because they pick on themselves as well. What I mean by that is, ikaw lang naman makakilala sa sarili mong kapwa. So, kung sila insecure sila at they pick on you, it says more about them than you, di ba? You
That
should
is really true.
focus on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Always focus, like, what's best about you kaysa dun sa anong pinipick on ng mga tao sa'yo. So, you have to accept that. You have to learn to live with it. Kasi it makes you special. It makes you you.
That is
Ikaw na.
true. It's well, it's really funny how people bully others for like the insecurities that they have. But I digress. Let's go to Christine for her answer.
Well, acceptance really is the key. Like accepting your flaws may be a hard thing, but it will help you grow and glow. Parang the moment you accept yourself, you become more beautiful. Kahit ano pang sabihin ng mga tao sa'yo, kahit ano pa yung beauty standards ng society, just love yourself and love your flaws.
Indeed, indeed. Now that said, one major insecurity that most people have is concerning their own body. And as we know, in the age of social media, it's really hard to get away from all these body ads that, supermodels, buff guys, stuff like that. It makes one think, do I really look good in this body? And this gave rise
True.
to the whole problem of body shaming. So let's talk about body shaming. Let's hear what Christine has to say about it.
Well, mai-share ko lang 'no, kahapon kasi lumabas kami and we bumped into an old friend. And kasi nga 'di ba pandemic, so nag-gain talaga ako ng weight from 54, 62, almost 63 na nga eh. And kahapon sabi sa akin ng old friend ko, "Uy, tumataba ka ata. Parang 'di bagay sa'yo magpapayat ka." So, ano yung mafi-feel ko 'pag sinabi niyang gano'n? Well, before, talagang nahu-hurt ako. But ngayon parang nandito na ako sa phase ng life ko na, um, ina-accept ko na kung ano ako and kung ano yung itsura ko. Like, ang masasabi ko lang sa mga nagba-body shame, like, you don't encourage people to take care of their body by telling them to hate it. You know, remember that judging a person does not define who they are. It defines who you are. So, like, think before you speak kasi talagang affect siya sa confidence ng tao. Yun.
That is true.
Ganda.
After all, you gotta like keep some negative thoughts to yourselves as a sign of courtesy. Like this is something that's expected of everyone. You don't just give a judgment of a person out in public. But let's see what Miguel has to say about this. I think he'll agree with me.
Yeah, I agree with you, mom. Parang, sometimes, if you have nothing positive to say, just shut up. Kasi, hindi mo naman buhay eh. That's not, ano, that's not any of your business. But like, if they ask your opinion, don't be afraid to say it. But do it in the most kindest way possible. Because if you don't do that, they'll hate you for it. They'll resent you for it, and that's not nice. That's your friend, diba? That's your homie. And
Agree.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Tapos yung whatever happens, depende kung how he or she takes it, parang nasa kanila na yun. Like, you just gave your opinion in the kindest way possible. Excuse
Of
me.
course, there's like a massive difference between like giving a cool recommendation, like asking someone if they take lifts, but there's
True,
something
true.
entirely different when you say that they're growing fat. There's a very
Yeah, yeah,
clear
true,
difference
true.
with that.
Yeah.
So
Mm,
that said, like with the problem of body shaming, there's also the rise of like mental health questions, because uh, asking about someone's body or any other thing that could threaten their insecurities would usually destabilize someone's mental health. So let's talk about taking care of your mental health. I got 4 words for that: sleep, eat, weep, and repeat. Now, what do I mean by this? So
Go ahead.
let's be clear here. What I mean by this basically is that you should definitely give yourself some room, some space to breathe. Don't be so harsh on yourself when things when things start to look rough for you in life. It's always good to like take a step back, breathe in, sit down, and try to forget about it for a bit. And once your head is a bit more clear, you can start sorting out your problems. Basically, like think about how you can bounce back from this, what's the best course of action, what should be your priorities, stuff like that. Get enough sleep, don't care about anything else, basically. I know it's easier said than done, but it can be done. I can confirm. I've been doing it for the last 12 years, and eat properly. Just because you're stressed doesn't mean that you got to neglect your diet or overindulge in your diet. You have to be balanced with your meals as well. And I swear, it actually really helps keep your stress down, since it makes you less agitated, stuff like that. And when things start to get really overwhelming, you gotta weep, you gotta cry, you gotta let it out. It's really healthy for the body to actually cry. It's not a joke. Like, even if men cry, it's nothing to be ashamed about, since you gotta let it out somehow. Bottling all up just makes it destructive. Like, it'll end up affecting the people around you more negatively than if you just let it out right then and there, where somewhere where you feel safe.
True.
And you know just repeat the cycle whenever like things start to get heavy, because they will start to get heavy again at some point in your life. It'll always happen. That's the nature of life. But as long as you continue these steps, I can assure you, it's worked for me for the last 12 years. It'll work for you for the next 20.
Okay.
So, Miguel, what do you got to say about that?
Una, totoo yun. Kasi later I'll weep later because Yanni does not like my color orange highlighter. And para sa akin, masakit yun, you know?
Right.
Yeah. But in the end, it's all about perspective, buddy boy. Kasi life, it's gonna be but life is tough. Let's be real. Parang life is unfair. You're gonna take the L's. You're gonna take a lot of L's than more than W's. And uh kailangan mo, you have to see everything in a better light. Hindi naman to neglect your own feelings. Simply, you need to release that. But you always have to look at the better parts of anything. Like, you can't always parang, oh, I'm down, I'm crying, I'm always gonna cry. You can't let that, you can't let that eat you up. You gotta get back up. You gotta keep going. It's all about perspective. This knocked me down. How, syempre, you take a while. Yak ka muna, take a hit, and then reevaluate your situation. Tapos perspective. All right, back to happy. And hindi sama back to happy, but how can I get back to my happy state? Yun. That's my.
That's a really good analogy of that, boy.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, yeah.
honestly, like concerning mental health, like one of the groups of people most affected by, negative mental health would be the LGBT community, as we all
Mhm.
know, since it's really hard to come out when, the society itself is really against you, since it's ridiculously conservative here in the Philippines. And well, speaking of sexuality, it's one of those things that we find out while we're growing up, right? Like, you never know what your real sexuality is until you've actually encountered that sort of thing. Like, any sort of encounter. I don't mean like directly, you and you know what I mean. And
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah,
um,
but we gotcha.
Anyway, yeah. Speaking of sexuality while growing up, let's ask Annie what she has to say about it.
You know, I grew up in a very, very conservative environment because my parents, like, actually, almost all of my relatives are born again Christians. So when we talk about sexuality, it's like a very, very sensitive topic. But since yun nga, I have lots of friends who are part of the LGBTQ, and from them, dun ko nalalaman ano ba talaga yung totoong nararamdaman nila as members of the community. And what I've learned from them is that don't worry if you aren't sure about your sexuality kasi being young, being young, like during your youth, it's actually a time to figure out what works for you. So exploring and managing your strong feelings is often part of the experience growing up. Kaya yun yung ginawa nila. It was hard for them kasi they were also part of the community. I grew up in like a very traditional Christian environment. But thankfully, actually, our community learned how to accept them and respect them. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
That sounds great, Annie. It's actually a true story for like most LGBTQ members around the world. Really, it's not just a specifically Christian thing. I can think of like a lot of other people. But other than that, let's head to Christine and ask her what she thinks about it.
Well, I think you just have for you to find your true self. You have to develop self-awareness and stop pretending or imitating other people. So with that, you'll be able to find your true self, and just be yourself. Like no matter what color your skin is, no matter what gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, or religion, just always choose to be kind. Yeah.
It's really well said, Christine.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
True,
you
true.
got to be accepting of like other people. They're also people.
Yeah.
They're human. And that being said, it's really hard for them to accept themselves because they themselves think, because of how society sees them, they themselves think that they aren't normal. Now, that said, it's really hard for them to love themselves because if you can't accept yourself, how can you love yourself, right? So let's talk about self love. So for me, here's what I got to say: the world will not always love you. If there's one person who you can always rely on to pick you up, it's yourself. It's important for you to be really comfy with your own skin. Now, the thing with self love is that you first gotta accept your own flaws, right? You gotta accept that you aren't perfect. You gotta accept your insecurities. Only then can you really accept who you are. Only then can you know who you are. Only then can you really, truly say that I love myself. Now, why is it important to love yourself? Because, like I said, the world won't love you. There's only really a few people in your life who will ever truly love you. And it's really important to know who those are. But in the moments of doubt where you don't know who they are, because they will happen, it's really important that you love yourself in order to stay stable. If you don't, well, I know a lot of people who fell down a rabbit hole that they couldn't have climbed out of anymore without support. And that's because they couldn't love themselves. I think it's really important that you do love yourself because of that. So, that said, let's ask Christine what she has to say.
Sa akin naman, fly. 'Di ba sabi nga nila, ang ibon, 'di ba nakalilipad sila, and kapag lumilipad sila, they are free, malaya sila. So, for you to, if you want to fly, you have to give up what weighs you down. So first, you gotta love yourself, accept yourself, and with that, mamahalin mo yung sarili mo. And yeah.
All right. What about Miguel? I think you got some ideas here.
Yeah, you gotta know. You gotta be kind to yourself. Kasi in life, sa any place you are, there's only one person who will always be with you, and that is you. And no one talks to you more than thinks to you more than yourself. You see, it's what everyone does. Everybody thinks about himself, but oh my god, am I being too conservative, being too mean, being too self-conscious about myself. You gotta know, you gotta love yourself first. If I say, okay, first of all, before anything else, I love me. You gotta know that's what you always need from yourself. You can't bring yourself down. You say that's how depression start. That's how any mental illness starts. It starts with you tearing yourself down. When in life you have to build yourself up and ready yourself for anything that will happen to you. Because the world is not the best of place, and you can't expect it to be. You have to be prepared to meet it head on, and that starts with you first. To be kind to
Amen
yourself.
to that.
Yes.
Like, I like the sentiment. I mean, I've always said the world won't always love you. I think I
Yeah.
can spin that another way. The world isn't heaven. It's important to remember
Yeah.
that. As
True.
much
Yeah.
True.
as life can seem good for yourself, it won't stay that way forever. Nothing lasts forever, really. So,
Yeah.
the one thing that you should, prioritize in lasting forever for yourself is your own love for yourself. And that said,
Mhm,
with self love comes self responsibility. And let's just say that although we did talk about body shaming, it's still really important that we still keep ourselves healthy, right? Since how can we appreciate life if we just cut it short just like that by not taking care of ourselves?
mhm,
So
mhm, mhm.
the
Mm-hmm.
main thing here is that nothing works as a one size fits all when it comes to the body. So your body is your own responsibility. Let's hear what Yanni has to say about this.
Well, it's like one of the best investments. Yourself, self love nga is the best type of love, and in order to be selfless eventually, first you have to be selfish. Now it's going to take a really long time to find out what works best for your body. Although it's going to be rewarding in the end, because you know what's for you. You know what works best for your body. Unlike other people who's still on their journey into reaching that. At least ikaw alam mo na yung sayo, alam mo na yung makakatulong sa'yo, whether it be for like gym, working out, eating, your skincare, lalo na sa girls kasi mahilig yung mga girls dun. Yeah, yeah, yun. It took me actually like 4 years to get like a perfect skincare routine. Chika ko lang. I was actually very, very acne prone before. Like when I was
Oh,
grade 7, I had to go to the derma every 2 weeks just to get facials because I was very acne prone. So up until I was grade 11, joke no, grade 10, I found like the perfect skincare routine. So, ang tagal nun, mga 4 years, 5 years rin.
4 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time. And well, at least you took the responsibility to actually like find out what works best for you. So props to you for that. What about Christine?
I would just like to agree with Yanni. Totoo na talagang ikaw sa sarili mo yung makakahanap nung kung ano yung magwo-work sa'yo or magfi-fit sa'yo. So like, it is your responsibility to improve and take care of your mind and body. Yun lang naman.
Oh yeah, that is true. We didn't mention that the mind is part of like the responsibilities of taking care of your body. But that comes with the whole package. I mean, you aren't born without a brain. So you got to use like your brain in order to take care of your brain basically.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. That's good.
Follow your heart. Protect your brain.
yeah, and well, it's just called holistic health really, and health is wealth.
Mhm.
So yeah, well, that about wraps up our segment of the day. I want to thank you, the four of you, for joining me today, and I want to
Thank
thank the rest
you.
of you for all hanging out with us on our little rambles. Stay tuned. The Point of Discourse will be back soon with a fresh episode.
Thank
Until
you.
then, enjoy the summer and stay frosty, people.